Atuk. 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 Atuk.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Oh, that should be more that way. That way you guys can see me better. Good morning. Good morning. Hope you all had a good day or good weekend. And you're having a good morning so far. Good morning, Olivia. Good morning, Antoinette. Good morning, Jill. Good morning, Angela. And whoever else has tuned in right now. We got 11 people watching, which is good. I'm going to wait around 5 minutes for some more people to arrive. Okay. Good morning, Aaron. So, for those tuning in right now, good morning, Rafael. Good morning, Amir. We are not really working on a new worksheet. I am going to teach something new today. I was considering not doing it, but I think it's helpful for you and it helps catch up and kind of hones your math skills. So we're going to be doing something new today. We'll be pushing our application problems to tomorrow. But today you only need blank pieces of paper and a pen and pencil. So it's not like you need a worksheet to print out or anything. Just have a piece of paper ready to write notes on as you follow along with my lesson. Okay, so that's the idea. So get that ready for now. Okay, and then we will get started very shortly. 1 second. Yeah, for those tuning in, I should actually type it in the chat. But please go grab a piece of paper. There's nothing you need to print out for today. Okay, we're just working on pen and paper, and you're just kind of following along the sheet. We're reviewing our substitution and elimination methods today, and then we'll move on into application problems tomorrow. And then we're technically done the unit. Which means we move on into Unit 4 later this week. Just 1 or 2 more minutes and then we'll get started. Okay, let's get started. Since I don't think we're gonna get more people right now. Good morning, Angela. Good morning, Samandar. Device is in use by another application. What do you mean? Does that fix it? There we go. Fantastic. Okay. So let's kind of go over what we need to. So let's start with substitution. Okay, let's start with substitution. So we talked about solving linear systems. By graphing, you should know how to do. Hopefully you know how to plot it. But with substitution and elimination, it becomes a little bit harder. So this is what we're going to do. So let's copy down. Gotta make sure you see down here. Okay. Okay. So 3x plus y equals 2. And then 2x plus 3y equals 13. So those are our two equations. So that's equation 1 and that's equation 2. So when we talked about substitution, right, we are to substitute one equation into the other. And the way I asked you to do it is the first step you should be doing is to isolate, right? The isolate portion is to figure out which variable is alone or can we make alone, right? And the way we check if we can make it alone is to see which one has a coefficient of 1. And so when we look at these two equations, equation 1 has this y variable as a coefficient of 1. So since it has a coefficient of 1, that's the one we're going to isolate for. Okay? So since we are isolating for that value, we need to take this and move it to the other side. We want that over, okay? We want that over and gone. And so if we rearrange it, we're going to get y equals 2 minus 3x. So we get y equals 2 minus 3x, right? Which is exactly what we want. And this we'll call equation 3. Okay? So I've taken the 3x, I've moved it to the right side, and since it was positive, it now becomes negative. Not only that, we now have y isolated. So that's our first step, isolate. The second step was to substitute. So this was step 1. Right? Step 1, isolate. I'll write it out for you as we kind of review going through. Okay? So step 1 is to isolate. Y equals 2 minus 3x. Step 2 is to substitute. So this is our substitution step, right? So we are going to sub 3 into equation 2. Okay? So looking back up here, since we have equation 3 that's isolated, we are plugging it into equation 2 that we haven't touched yet. Okay? If we plug this back into 1, what we already isolated for, we're going to get nothing out of it. We're going to get 0, and that's not what we want. So we want to plug it into the other equation we haven't used yet. So when we substitute that in, I'm going to copy down equation 2. I'm going to write 2x plus 3. And instead of y, where there would normally be a y, I'm going to replace it with 2 minus 3x. Right? So we substitute, and then we can continue to solve that. So we expand our bracket. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times negative 3x is negative 9x. And that equals 13. Okay? Once we have that down, we combine like terms. 2x minus 9x gives me negative 7x plus 6 equals 13. Okay? So that's our step 2. That's our substitute. Okay? So once again, step 1, isolate. Step 2, substitute. Okay? And remember, if you have any questions, you're like, Mr. Choi, you're going a little too fast, just type in the chat, could you re-explain this? And when you be specific, can you be specify, like, can you re-explain step 2, step 1? Like, specify which one. Don't say everything's not true. You should have a specific step. You're like, I didn't understand it. Can you re-explain it? Okay? So, continuing on, step 3. Let's shift this downwards here. Okay, so step 3 is to solve. Okay, so now we're solving it. So this we'll call equation 4. We're going to solve 4, right? We're going to solve this equation 4. So I'm going to copy that down. And I ask myself, well, I need to solve for x. X is the one we need to solve, so what do I move over? So I'm going to move, first step, addition, subtraction goes first in algebra. So we move the plus 6, and we're going to get 13 minus 6. When we continue that on, we're going to get negative 7x equals 7. Then I ask you, oh, how do I get rid of the negative 7? You should know that it's dividing by negative 7 now. And that results in x equals negative 1. Okay, so x equals negative 1. Okay, so x equals negative 1. Once that is completed, okay, x equals negative 1, we move on to step 4. Okay. So up to step 3, we have step 1, step 2, step 3. Okay. And then step 4. Which is our sub and solve, right? Our third S, which is another substitute. We are substituting this x equals negative 1 into, okay? Now, we're going to take this x equals negative 1 that we just solved for, and we're going to plug it back into one of these equations here. And usually, I told you, pick the first one you moved around. We like picking our original equation, because if we messed up our isolation, at least this will tell us whether it's right or wrong. So we're going to sub it into equation 1, since that's the first one we touched. And so equation 1 looked like this. 3x plus y equals 2. And since x is negative 1, we can plug in 3 times negative 1 plus y equals 2. That gives me negative 3 plus y equals 2. Solving that for y, move that over. We're going to get y equals 5. Okay, so we get y equals 5. So that's step 4. So within these 4 steps, right? Within these 4 steps, we've solved for x and y. So step 5 and step 6, right, was our check, right? And then our statement. So step 5, let's check our work. Okay, so we're saying that x equals negative 1 and y equals 5. So we're going to take this and we're going to substitute it into equation 1 and equation 2. So equation 1, okay, I should separate it. Equation 1 is 3x plus y equals 2. So we're going to plug in these values. We get 3 times negative 1 plus 5 equals 2. That's negative 3 plus 5 equals 2. 2 equals 2. So left side equals right side. There's your first check. Our second check is going to be our second equation of 2x plus 3y equals 13. Okay, so 2x plus 3y equals 13. We substitute x as -1 and y as 5. We get this here. 2 times -1 is -2. 3 times 5 is 15. That equals 13. -2 plus 15 gives me 13. 13 equals 13, which means left side equals right side. Okay, left side equals right side. So, since we've checked both our work, we can finally go to step 6, which is our statement. Whoops. Which we just state. Once we have checked it, we can say that the point of intersection is -1, 5. X comma y, as all points are written. Okay? So this was our substitution example, right? I used all of the space that I could to make it bigger and easier for you to read. You can write it smaller, of course. Don't worry about it. So yeah, so there we go. Okay. So once you've finished copying this work down, I'm going to give you a second equation or second set linear system, and you are going to solve it yourself using substitution. So this is your practice with substitution. So please try to solve this on your own. Okay. So I'll give you a question, and let's see if you can solve it. Okay. Yes, use the notes as guideline. Please use the notes as a guideline. That's the point of notes. Okay. That's the point of our notes. So the second question will be let's go with 2x minus 2y equals 9, and then x plus 4y equals 18. Okay? So, I will give you time to solve for this on your own. Okay? So, let's give you 5 minutes, which will be on the screen now. So I'll replace it with my webcam face. If you have any questions, type it in the chat. Feel free to ask me. But otherwise, give this a shot. 5 minutes. Hopefully you guys finished, because time's up. And if you didn't finish, that's okay. Hopefully you're getting the practice and you're doing the work that I'm asking you to do every week, and then you'll be fine. So, let's talk about this. So, step 1. Okay. So, we would take equation 2 in our situation because we have our x as a coefficient of 1 in comparison to our other variables that have other numbers like 2 and 4. So when we isolate, we're going to take equation 2, move the plus 4y, and so we're going to get x is equal to 18 minus 4y as our equation 3. Okay, which pushes us right into step 2. Okay, so we're going to sub 3 into 1 this time. So since we moved and changed equation 2, we're going to sub it into equation 1. So we're replacing x. So we're going to write 2 bracket 18 minus 4y. because that's our new x here. Okay? Minus 2y equals -9. Okay? When we expand it out, 2 times 18 is 36. 2 times -4y is -8y. Minus 2y equals -9. Which gives me 36 minus 10y equals, -9. Okay? Step 3. We need to solve this. So my first step will be to move my 36 to the other side, because addition subtraction goes first. So we get -10y is equal to -9 minus 36. Looks like we might get a fraction here for this equation. That's okay, we'll work with it. -10y is equal to -45. Okay? And so when we divide by -10, we're actually going to get 4.5 as our value here. Okay, so it looks like we get 4.5. So we have 4.5 as our value. Decimal, 0.5, not too bad. Okay, so you shouldn't freak out about this decimal here. Okay. So continuing on, let's move up to here because we're running out of space. So step 4 is to sub our y equals 4.5 into any of the two equations at the beginning. So let's plug it into equation 2. Okay, so we're going to get x plus 4y, 4y equals 18. We're going to get x plus 4 times 4.5 is equal to 18. We get x plus 18 equals 18, which gives you only one option here. We get the plus 18 to the other side. We're going to get x equals 18 minus 18, which means x is equal to 0. Okay. So hopefully you've checked your work. Okay. Step 5 is to check your work. So we have 2x minus 2y equals -9. X is 0, y is 4.5, so we're going to plug that in. Two times 0 is 0, we can ignore that. -2 times 4.5 is -9, and so we get left side equals right side. That's good. For our second one, it's x plus 4y equals 18. That's 0 plus 4 times 4.5 equals 18, which gives us 18 equals 18. Left side equals right side. So then we can go to step 6, which is our final answer. Right? Step 6, which is our POI is 0, 4.5. Okay. So these are some clean, even though it's a decimal, like 0.5 shouldn't be anything of an issue. Right? I'm not going to give you really hard decimals, like the fractions that don't turn into a nice decimal, like repeating fractions, like for example 1/3 or 5/3. Like I'm not going to give you those ones. But something like this shouldn't be too bad. Okay? So this was our substitution review. Okay? I'll be posting up a review package online anyways. Okay? So I'll be posting up a review package and that should help you practice some more on these questions as well. But let's go to elimination. Let's do elimination now. Okay? So let's do some elimination. So if you remember the difference, elimination, well, we eliminate or get rid of a variable. So let's do this one by elimination. Okay. So for elimination, let's say I have these two equations. So if I give you something simple like this, first step is to check, is everything lined up? Is x on top of x? Is y on top of y? Is the equal sign on top of the equal sign? Is the number on top of the number? And going across, yes, x is on top of x, y is on top of y, equal is on top of equal, number is on top of number. So that works, right? We have everything lined up. If everything is lined up, we can draw our long line, and now we determine, is it adding or subtracting? So first we look for, hey, which of these variables, right? Which of these variables has a matching coefficient? And the sign doesn't matter right now, just the number wise. Well, 7 and 6 don't match, but these two do. This is -1 and +1. So -1 and +1 are both 1s, so they definitely do match. Now we look at the signs now. One is negative, one is positive. If we go over our notes from last week, we should understand if the signs are different, we add the two equations together, and that gets rid of the x. So here I'm going to add the two equations together. So in other words, I go -1 plus +1 gives me 0. So that's gone. Right? There's nothing left here. Okay? I shouldn't write an x, but there's nothing there. Okay? -7 plus +6. -7 plus +6. That's going to give me -1y equals then 4 plus 2. 4 plus 2. And that's going to give me 6. And then step 2 was to solve this. Can you solve for y? And absolutely I can solve for y. That's going to give me y equals -6. Okay? So now our third step is to substitute y equals -6. Okay, we're going to sub it into our first two equations, these two here. Okay, pick the easier one. Okay, so if you didn't like negatives, you would probably pick equation 2. So if we use equation 2, I would substitute -6 for y. And that gives me x minus 36 equals 2. And so if I move this over to the other side, there, that's going to give me x is equal to 2 plus 36, and so x is equal to 38. And some people really liked elimination better, only because, you know, they're like, oh, it's really easy to, you know, to solve. We're using less space. It seems a little bit more easier to understand. But once again, some people might prefer substitution, some people might prefer elimination. So there will be certain questions where I say, hey, just solve it, where you get to pick your method. But on your assignment that's coming up, instead of a test, your assignment, that's going to be just you're going to have to solve it using substitution. You're going to have to solve it using elimination. And then you can solve it using whatever method you like. So make sure you still know how to do both of your equations, because it's important. Let me hydrate my voice. Okay. So when we keep going here. So we've solved for x, which is 38. We've solved for y, which is -6, which means we can now check our work. So let's check. Using our first equation, -x minus 7y equals 4. Okay? If we have negative x minus 7y equals 4, we have x is 38. We have our y as negative 6, which gives me negative 38 plus negative 7 times negative 6 is 42. So negative 38 plus 42 gives me 4. And so left side equals right side. And so that's our first check. Our second check is using our second equation, which is x plus 6y equals 2. We get 38 plus 6 times negative 6 equals 2. So we have 38 minus, because 6 times negative 6 is negative 36. And 38 minus 36 is just 2. So left side equals right side. So there we have it there. And so that's a check mark. Okay. So our final answer would be POI is 38, comma, whoops, not 4, negative 6. That's my fault. I was looking above. So there's our point of intersection. Okay. This also shows, don't freak out just because it's a big number. You should be fine with just solving this. Okay. So, same idea. Let's go through an example. Okay. But this time, let's make it so that you have to rearrange beforehand. Okay. Okay, so the equation I will be writing down looks like this. We have 2x equals 4y plus 9. And for the second one, we have 5x plus 4y equals 5. Now look very carefully with this question. Is everything lined up? Yes or no? And if it is not, you need to line it up. Remember, equal sign has to go over equal sign, y over y, x over x. Okay? Hint, it's not lined up. So rearrange one of them. So I'm going to set a timer once again. I'm going to set a timer for 5 minutes 30 seconds. Good luck. And I'll see you back in 5 minutes. All right. If you have the answer, I'm curious. Please type it in the chat. If you have the answer, please type it in the chat. No one has an answer? We got an x equals 2 from Angelo. Anyone else? No one has the full point of intersection? Well, let's make sure we did our step 1 correctly. You should have rearranged equation 1. And so instead, this is what you should have been working with. Okay? So first, whoops, that's plus supposed to be an equal sign. Okay? So you'll notice I rearranged my first equation because 4y should be on the left side of the equal sign, not on the right. So even though it looks like it's lined up, the equal signs are not lined up, which is an issue. So I'm going to move the 4y to the other side, and that will line up my equal sign. Then I'm going to get rid of the y's, because they both have 4. And I'm going to get rid of it by adding. So 2 plus 5 is 7. Negative 4 plus positive 4 is 0. That's gone. 9 plus 5 is 14. And so dividing by 7 will give me x equals 2, which is what Angelo wrote earlier, which is good. So we get x equals 2. That's our first part of our answer. Continuing onwards, if we substitute it into one of the equations, let's substitute it into equation 2. So let's use this one here. So 5 times 2 plus 4y equals 5. Okay. So 5 times 2 is 10. Plus 4y equals 5. 4y is equal to 5 minus 10. y equals negative 5. Y is equal to negative 5 over 4, which should give you negative 1.25. So I apologize for the decimal. I'll try to keep that out for next time. But there's your answer. Oh, sorry. I should have moved that down. So I apologize for the decimal. I should try to give you some more whole number answers. But there you have it for that one there. Okay. If we check it, okay. If we check our work here, we have x is 2, y is negative 1.25 plus 9, and so we have 4 is equal to, we multiply this, that should give me negative 5 plus 9, so 4 equals 4, that's left side equals right side. Yes, absolutely. So there's our first check there. So we do get left side equals right side. For the second one, we get x is 2, y is negative 1.25. So I get 10 minus 5 equals 5. So I get 5 equals 5. Left side equals right side. And there's our check there. And so there's our answer. And so we can say that our point of intersection here is 2, negative 1.25. So once again, I apologize. I will try not to get decimals for my examples. But if you follow the method, it shouldn't have a problem. Or you shouldn't have a problem. So make sure you do the practice problems because those will help you. Once again, I'll be posting up a review on Wednesday. And make sure you try those problems as well. Okay? So, to our new lesson for today. And it's not significantly new, but there is something that I want to talk about. Let's look at this situation here. So this would be those situations, right? If I ask you to solve this linear system, okay, would you use substitution or would you use elimination for this one? Right? Type in the chat, substitution or elimination. Which one should I do? Exactly. Substitution, right? And the reason for that would be, well, the coefficient in the first one is 1. So it would be easy to reorganize and solve these questions, right? That's the idea. But What if, here, let me double check that this answer is not a decimal. 1 second. But what if we didn't get something nice like that? And what I mean by that, so this would be substitution, and everyone's getting it right, which is great. But what if I gave you an example that wasn't something that you can use substitution for, and elimination didn't exactly work out the way you want it to? So give me 1 second while I find, because this one also is a decimal, and I don't want to give you decimals. Okay, there we go. Got it. Okay, so this is clearly substitution, right? So we could ignore that. What about this one? Which one do I do here? Substitution or elimination? Or does it not matter? So people are having a little, or people are getting confused, right? Some people are saying elimination, some people are saying both, some people are saying, I mean, I don't think either of them work, right? The way I've taught you, right? Substitution, this definitely, you would be like, hey, I don't see a 1, a coefficient of 1. I don't know how you can solve that. And for elimination, it's the same idea. The numbers are not exactly the same. They won't eliminate. They won't get rid of each other. So we come into this issue where this might be impossible for you to solve. But let's look at something very interesting here, okay? The best way you can solve this to make sure you don't use fractions would be elimination. However, there's going to be an extra step before you solve this elimination question. So that extra step looks like this. We are going to force the numbers to match. Okay? We're going to force the numbers to match. So I'm going to pick equation 1 to change first, and I'm going to make sure x's match. Okay? So what is the first number that comes to mind that both 3 and 4 can make? Well, very simple. That would be 12. So I'm going to take this equation here, I'm going to multiply it by 4. That's going to give me 3 times 4 is 12x. Negative 4 times 4 is negative 16y. And then 7 times 4 is 28. So that's my first equation. That's what it's changed to. My second one, I'm going to multiply by 3. 4 times 3 is 12x. 5 times 3 is 15y. And negative 32 times 3 is negative 96. Now look at my equation. I have changed this into something that is solvable. I've made my x's match. Once again, they didn't match before, so I multiplied the whole equation by certain numbers to make sure that the result matches. Okay? So when we continue on here, then we can just solve this like normal. I'm going to subtract to get rid of this. 12 minus 12 is 0, so it's gone. Negative 16 minus 15 gives me negative 31y. 28 minus negative 96 gives me 124. Okay. So when we continue solving this, dividing by negative 31, I'm actually just going to get y equals negative 4. If you gotta go, just finish watching the video after you're done. Yeah. Don't worry. Once again, the video is going to be available for you to catch up on, so don't worry. Okay? So, after that, we can plug in this into our original equation. Okay? So we have 3x minus 4y equals 7. 3x minus 4 times negative 4 equals 7. 3x plus 16 equals 7. And now we solve this equation here. So I've taken out my first equation. I substituted y equals negative 4. And then I solve it. Your final answer here and then I'm running out of space, so I'll just solve it. X is equal to negative 3. So my POI is negative 3 comma negative 4. Now this is a harder question, right? Am I expecting you to know this? I expect you to try at least one of this, right? So take a look at this example, try it on your own as well. And I'll try to review it over on Wednesday during the office hours if anyone needs help. Because we're going to be doing application questions tomorrow, and then we'll go over this in application on Wednesday. Okay? So this is kind of like a very different case where you're like, I don't know which one to use, and you would have to use this one here. Okay? So that will be it for today. It's already 12 o'clock. It's been an hour. So that will be it. Let's talk about, real quick before you go, some announcements. So on Wednesday will be office hours as like before. So Wednesday will be office hours. Please come in. If you didn't understand what I just did at the very end, you should be coming in. You should be asking me a question like, hey, can you go over another question? I'd be like, absolutely. So let's do that. Second announcement, there will be no test, but there will be an assignment, a unit assignment instead. So what you're going to be doing, look for your sheet. Look for a worksheet on Google Classroom, right? There's going to be it's going to be Unit 3 final assignment. You're going to get a worksheet. It'll be due in a week, right? So you do it on your own time, okay? And once you do finish that assignment, you're going to take pictures of your completed assignment and you're going to upload it and hand it in. So that's how it's going to work. I'll give you the instructions on Google Classroom and later this week as well. But keep that in mind. Make sure you understand there is no test. It will be an assignment. Otherwise, take care. Have a good one. See all of you. Peace out.